it's going to take the artists putting out music that connects with people and resonates with people before the labels are going to fully understand the cultural impact and the cultural currency.
You know, you've done so many music documentaries. Why country? Why did you want to make this film now?
I made a film about Dolly Parton a few years ago, and so I was asked whether I would do this, but the remit was quite loose at the time. It originally was called Rebel Soul, before it became Rebel Country, and so I was given a loose remit, and then I thought, how can I make this into something that is interesting and relevant? And I suppose I thought of rebellion in country music used to mean maybe the sort of jelly rolls of now, but the old rebels who were sort of rabble-rousing, hard-drinking, always male, prison-visiting, drug-taking kind of guys. And I thought, actually, that's not relevant anymore. And in some ways, the rebels in country music now are those people who are defying the system and trying to show that they have a place at this party. And those people who are doing it through social media, rather than the traditional forms such as, country music radio, actually. So my esteemed colleague here, Breland, he has such an enormous following on social media. But I think it's a shame, and I hope the film highlights this to some degree, that people of colour, people who are not heterosexual males, are still struggling to find their place in country music, and it's still a struggle in a way that it isn't in any other genre. And I think coming from the outside, I think that is an extraordinary situation that has to change, and it has to change soon.
So when you were kind of starting this whole process, how did you pick who you were going to talk to? How did you reach out to Breland? Like, was there a list given to you? Were you researching?
No, I just researched, and I looked at these various artists and what they were trying to do. And, how can you deny someone like Breland when the beginning of his fabulous, and in some ways atypical, I don't know whether you'd agree, but song Don't Touch My Truck, where he pushes the white guy out of the thing. And I think that says it in one small clip. It says how country music is changing, and that the gatekeepers are changing, the artists are changing, and the audiences are changing, and rightly so. So I think in that one small clip, in that video, you do everything. And actually it's at the end of the film that I put this in, but I think it's a metaphor somehow for the whole industry changing, that little one sign.
So when you signed on to do this, and kind of when you started your career, did you see yourself as someone who was kind of pushing these boundaries, or were you just saying, I'm going to make music and have fun with it?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of it was planned, some of it was unplanned. I came into this with a level of kind of ignorance about all of the dynamics within the genre that I think allowed me the freedom to kind of explore on that first single especially. I was living in Atlanta. I'd been working on a lot of R&B and hip-hop music at the time, and you can hear some of those influences in that debut single, but I put it out independently. I didn't have a PR strategy, a marketing plan. I didn't have management. I didn't have a label. It was really just something that I put on the internet for fun that started to kind of form a life of its own. But very early into the song being received by larger and larger groups of people, I definitely started to see why it was such an important piece of art for the time that it was released. It's a song that was controversial. Is this country? Is this not country? Debates like that. People didn't know what I looked like at the time because my social media was under a different handle at the time, and I was seeing that a lot of the people who were resonating with the songs, it was like two completely different groups of people. You had like these hip hop fans, a lot of like black dudes in southern cities that were really repping the song, but then also like a more conservative white crowd that was really enjoying the song. And I was like, this is really powerful that this song is able to reach both of these groups of people at the same time, and there isn't a lot of music that actually does that. And so I think that was the moment that I realized that there was a larger conversation that I was a part of, and doing my due diligence to make sure that I could participate in that conversation as an informed party, and making sure that I was really intentional with how I move forward.
Mm-hmm.
But in some way, Breland's being a little humble here, because part of the reason that song did so well is because it's so very, very good. It's so catchy, and it's so clever, and it's done with a sparkle in his eye. It's done with humour, and I think that's the way to get through this, is maybe with humour. And Breland exemplifies that beautifully.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even recently you had a cameo in Roadhouse,
Yeah.
kind of played yourself, and even in that role you can kind of see, you get something like thrown at you while you're singing, and they're like, how do you kind of deal with that sort of backlash while still being kind of proud of the work that you're putting out?
Yeah, I mean, I know now that what it is that I'm doing, while it's not always actively political or even intended to be super rebellious, like the title of this film, in a lot of ways it always will be, and at least for now. And so I've never quite had anything quite like the Roadhouse film where people are actually throwing things at me. I think that's a little crazy, but it was a fun film to be a part of, because it, playing in front of crowds that might not love what I'm doing is something that I do have some experience with. I've done the national anthem at the Daytona 500, and when they announced that I was doing it, there were a bunch of people in the comments and on Twitter like, "What? This is ridiculous! Like, this is you're making a political statement by having him sing this." I was like, "Dude, I'm just gonna sing the song, And someone was online like, how do you expect him to sing this song? And I responded, and I was like, very competently, actually. And then I did it, and then everyone was like, "Oh, that was great." And I'm like, "Okay, great. Like, just let me do my job and give me a chance." And if you still don't like it after you've seen the show, then those opinions are fine. But if you're gonna have those opinions ahead of time, then that sounds like prejudice, because you are prejudging what it is that I'm doing without having actually seen how I'm going to do it. And so I have had some experiences like that in this space, and I know a lot of other artists that look like me have had similar experiences, but I think that's why it's extra important for us to be even more bold, to continue to push forward. And so even when I do have moments like that, it's almost, it energizes me sometimes, because I feel like that's part of why I'm here, and I'm capable of handling it.
Yeah. Something I noticed while watching this movie was specifically, I think, the role that record labels have played. And you kind of started out independent, and that kind of gave you a jump start. But have you seen the same shift as we've seen in social media and listener behavior on the same side of like the corporate, the labels and things like that? Have they become more accepting? Have you seen, or is there still
the
some
market will lead, won't it?
Yeah.
So as soon as the likes of Breland hit through and get an audience on their own, then the record labels will be right behind them.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Will the record labels lead? I don't know.
Probably not. I mean, I've seen even just in the last year, there has been an effort to sign more artists of color at these record labels, but it still doesn't always work. I'm thinking about Tanner Adele and Tierra Kennedy, who both got major deals in the last year, and then within a year were both dropped from their labels. And it took someone like Beyonce coming along to then put those artists on her project, to then, I'm sure some of those labels were probably like, "Oh, well, we didn't know that this was gonna happen," and like then they might try to double back, but that's the industry that we're in, so I don't think that the labels are gonna lead that conversation. I think it's gonna take artists like myself or like a Shabuzi, or some of these other artists that are coming up now, where the music speaks for itself, and you get a little traction with the music, you get a little traction on social media, some viral videos, and then it gives the artist the opportunity to say, "Hey, maybe I don't even want to go with a label in this situation," and you might rock independent, or you at least have more options. But it's gonna take the artists putting out music that connects with people and resonates with people before the labels are gonna fully understand the cultural impact and the cultural currency.
Yeah.
But I think we do have to thank Queen Bee, because I think she has done the whole community, the country community, a huge amount of good by releasing that album, etc. And I think that's why this film, in some ways, it's such a good moment for this film, because it's absolutely the talking point at the moment. And Beyonce has done a lot of good for that. It's sad that Beyonce has to do that in order for the dial to shift, but I'm glad she's done it. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I feel like it's coming at a great time where there's a lot of new fans in country music and they're getting introduced to the genre, and this is a great way to introduce them to more diverse artists that are coming on the scene.
Well, there's no such thing as a particular type of country music.
Yeah.
There are so many different forms within country music, so of course it should be diverse. Of course these different artists should come in to reflect how the music is very different. You know, bro country is something very, very different to, you know, bluegrass. You know, they're completely different forms within the same thing, so of course you want diversity. You know, it's only going to make everything stronger.
Definitely. Yeah, very excited for the future of country music, and I appreciate you both talking with me today.
Yeah,
Pleasure.
thank you.
Yeah.
Pleasure.